Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Wrestling Underground Podcast. I am your host, as always, Chad Bordo. Joining me is the glorious one himself, Marcus Green. Marcus, how are you?
Good man, we have returned.
And we're here to start off. I shifted the schedule a little bit, the listing a little bit on the topics. We're starting with Xavier Woods out of a job. Now, this may strike you as a what kind of moment, but I'm not talking about the double E. Xavier Woods, if you haven't noticed by now, had been a major player of the attempted G4 revival that they were trying to do, that Comcast had hoped to pull off. Well, that's not going to happen anymore. The G4 revival era is over. G4 is closing, and even though Xavier Woods only just recently got his hosting gig on that brand about a year ago, he is now out of a job. So I guess he's going to have to hope that wrestling thing he's been toying around with takes off eventually for him. But basically, the network never found an audience because they specifically catered to a bunch of different people that weren't the fan base of the original G4. And it was kind of one of those things, like, when you think about it, like, why would you bring back a brand and then target a completely different group of people? It's like if you brought back ECW, but you only wanted vegans to be interested in the product. Why would you bring it back? And G4 was doing okay in their first 4 or 5 months. But then a very notorious rant kind of curtailed them, and the platform went from averaging about 60 to 80,000 hits per video to about 10,000 hits. And the live over-the-air channel that they were airing on Comcast Pacific was the lowest watched station or lowest watched channel on the Comcast broadband cable setup. So they were averaging 1,000 live viewers on the cable arm of G4. So at its peak, it was averaging about 11, not at its peak, at its lowest, it was averaging about 11,000 people across YouTube and cable. Yikes. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that a lot of the hosts came off as very unlikable and alienating. Not so much Xavier Woods. He never had any criticisms against him, but also I never saw anything about him on the internet pertaining to his run on the network. So, like, he was pretty unspectacular in a lot of ways. So it's disappointing that G4 is dead again, but it's also kind of one of those things where it gives you a stark reminder that you can't go back in time. Not with reality, not with relationships, and sure as shit, not with topical, zeitgeisty video game content from a bygone era. You can't do the same shit in 2022 that you could have in 2008. You can't put Olivia Munn in a bikini in 2022 and have her prance around. It ain't gonna happen.
It's everything's so bastardized now, and everything's so much and more in the hands of the consumer now. All those people who were fans of G4 have their own shows on YouTube or whatever platform talking about the things they were watching back then.
Mm-hmm.
And probably having more insight on the conversation because they're probably even more knowledgeable of the stuff than the people they used to watch. Because they're so deeply immersed in it. You don't need to put, like you said, somebody on like Olivia Munn on G4 because porn's on Twitter. So, you know.
And that's Margaret. That's one of the big things. Like, G4 existed as a tantalizing fodder for an era where online nudity was not nearly as prevalent.
Yeah.
So the idea, and we weren't as obsessed as a culture with porn either.
Yeah.
I would say that has definitely been a societal downfall for a lot of things in recent years, but it's kind of an interesting thought process to think about, not just in a not political, a social sense, where things that worked 15 years ago wouldn't work today because of just how much society has changed, but also in a practicality, like, why do we need G4? G4 on its own was a niche network designed to cater to an audience that didn't have anything else. G4 launched before YouTube had any real type of expectations for recurring content. YouTube,
Yeah.
when it first launched, was very much like TikTok today. There's
Hmm.
no, like, I shouldn't say there's no. I don't follow TikTok, so I don't know. But I'm not hearing a lot of like TikTok shows. Like every day at 5 p.m., this one creator does another show and it's about one specific topic. It's just random ass stuff and trends, which is what old YouTube was. The more things change, am I right? So now with YouTube bringing in millions of viewers for the type of content that G4 used to get, 200, 300,000 viewers on cable with, it really seemed like a pretty short-sighted idea because there's no room for it. There's no need for it. Outside of a nostalgia idea, it really didn't have a place in the modern
Yeah.
zeitgeist.
Yeah, it was gonna die definitely. I don't doubt that Woods was good, but I think he was the happy medium of like a super shitty guy or somebody that was like pandering. I think he
Did
found out. I mean, because he's somebody that's a genuine geek, a genuine nerd that probably loved that job, probably wanted it for years. Like you said, it was like maybe the right person at the wrong time because everything's different. A lot of those guys watch D4 who might have been very much looking forward to the consoles now are more analytical and methodical looking at these, video game consoles coming out now just because like the formats change now. Like
mm-hmm.
everything's getting upgraded the DLC content, the way you go about getting it and how the companies kind of, hustle that whole narrative is insane. And a lot of those console people are now PC people. So that conversation is different. And, it's like you said, a lot of that content is going to Twitch, so a lot of people are going there for that and watching other fans for that content that you get from G4 now. So like you said, aside from nostalgia, it was never going to get. It was always going to be peak at some point. And like you said, if something happened like with some type of rant or whatever, or somebody said something that was pissing people off, whether it be a political view or whatever, it was going to die a death. And specifically, if it was spending more money than it was bringing in, it was never going to work. So,
Did you watch any of the new G4?
no, no, I saw that Woods got involved, but I wasn't really pressed to see it. Because I'm like, okay, I watch his up, down, down stuff, but aside from that, I'm not really kind of geeked up to watch the video game stuff. Because again, and that's another thing about Twitter. A lot of times for those long, big ass shows, somebody will just create a highlight thing or create a thread of the most important stuff from those 3 hour presentation showcases. So, you don't really need it.
You really don't. See, G4 served a purpose in its time, but that time is gone and the landscape has shifted. I think there's equity in the name and you could have done something with it, but hiring
Yeah.
unlikable hosts that fragmented the communities of an already niche community was not the
Hmm.
way to go. So, and that's not a direct attack on Woods. Woods was universally praised as a hire. I just don't think he had the name value or the clout outside of like the WWE sphere to attract video gamers. Because like if you don't follow the WWE, why would you care about Xavier Woods or Austin Creed? Like to you, that's just, or not to you specifically, but to anyone who's not a wrestling fan, that's just another generic name on a run sheet. Like there's, if you're not a fan of G4 or WWE, he's not pulling you in. And I'm pretty sure he was probably the most expensive host they had. So
Yeah, and talking about that other audience they had, unless you, because I don't know exactly what was the host rotation back then, but if you're one of these guys who's really out of the loop and you're one of these grifter type guys who's always looking for, where the fix is in it, it's like, oh, who is this Woods guy? He looks like a diversity hire, and then that's the whole thing, you know.
yeah, and that's unfortunately another thing that the channel had to deal with. So Woods is gonna have to focus more on his in-ring career. Not that that's going anywhere anytime soon. Again, that's sarcasm because he's a Hall of Famer. Speaking of Hall of Famers, we're using a photo of Edge for the next story. It has nothing to do with Edge. So Brian Alvarez let slip that the current trend for thinking in the WWE is to do away with the special branded events that they've been doing. Now you can call them pay-per-views, premium live events. I don't give a fuck. They're shows. They're stupid shows with stupid names like Hell in a Cell, Money in the Bank, Fatal 4-Way, Extreme Rules. They're dumb. They're dumb. We're getting rid of them, apparently, according to Brian Alvarez. Now, I hope they keep Survivor Series, and I hope they bring back the original Survivor Series concept, because that I always thought was a cool shtick. And I'm not really a big fan of the idea of going with the War Games for Survivor Series, unless you also go back to the teams of 4 and 5. Now, one of the things they need to do on top of this, and this was the big problem, and they're just repeating it nowadays. The issue with the Hell in a Cells, the Money in the Banks, was you were doing 2 matches per show in the same year, and it took away the mystique and the hoopla of these shows. You're still falling into the same traps with that, though, because like at Survivor Series, we're gonna have 2 War Games matches, one for the men, one for the women. I'm sorry, I don't care enough about War Games to see it twice in the night, especially with the same janky ass concepts that we're going to see in both matches. There's going to be a Tower of Power. Both people are going to jump off the top rope. There's going to be the face advantage or the heel advantage in both matches. It's just like you do the same things every year, and now you're doing the same things twice in a show. So I'm glad they're getting rid of the specific match branded events that they air on Peacock, like your Hell in a Cells. But it's not going to change anything if we keep doing 2 of the same goddamn match. I don't have an issue if you put the women in the main event with the Survivor Series War Games match. My issue is that you're doing it just to do it in both situations. We either get the men's match or we get the women's match. Whichever one has more heat should get the match. Otherwise, put the other one in a 4-on-4, 5-on-5 Survivor Series elimination match. I feel like that's a nice fucking consolation prize. Especially if you're not going to be doing the traditional Survivor Series elimination matches. And you should only bring back the Survivor Series elimination matches as a concept if you're going to do the tournament, where the winning teams go on to the grand finale. Because that shit was dope. I like that. I'm trying to stop swearing. I gotta stop swearing. Marcus, are you upset with the end of the special branded pay-per-view / premium live events? I will never call it that.
No, as goofy as that does sound, I get the aspect of calling the premium live event because it's like again, if you're shilling a network for it, that means you're not asking them to pay per view because so I get that, but it's just pay per view is what we used to. But to piggyback off your great point, not only uh, yeah, absolutely about the first question about am I happy because it was unnecessary from jump. You didn't need to do it. It was another one of them things with WWE Classic. You know, it's not broken, but we're gonna try and fix it. You know, um, and again, like I said, to come off your point, not only was it like too much, you oversaturated by having 2 of those big match concepts on the show. A lot of times, and specifically in the last 5 years, a lot of times none of those so-called feuds warranted those level of matches. And at best, a lot of times only one feud warranted those matches. Um, and but only still, even at that time, just barely. That you couldn't call a lot of times when you do a Hell in a Cell, like at a certain point, that became Triple H's go-to thing because that's how peak a feud. I mean, when he did it with Batista, he was like, okay, this fucking gonna beat me twice. I got to put him in a situation where only benefits me. Hell in the Cell, and he came like mere seconds away from actually knocking him off in that match. That was a great match, but bastardizing the way that they have, like you said, between seeing the match too much and then the feud's not really warranting it, and then them having to make up for what lacked in the feud with violence in the match, it didn't go well. But now, like you said, how long have they gone with that concept? It's like it felt like they've gone with these branded pay per view after the matches as long as they've gone with the broken concept of the brand split. So you almost don't like even if they don't do the match concept as a whole show, you still don't have as much faith in the concept of the match as you should because like I said, you kind of bastardized it all to hell. So, I think it's a good idea, but I think it got a long way to go to get legitimacy back in some of those matches. Specifically when you do something like tables, ladders, chairs, and stairs.
And pairs. I don't think there's any revival coming for these brands. I think Hell in a Cell's dead. And truthfully, there's a part of me that thinks that Hell in a Cell was dead in 2006 when they made it like this tall, janky ass looking cage instead of the more tight, confined box. Because like with the box, it felt more like this was traumatic, this was vile. Like we were gonna do things to the human body that shouldn't be done under the guise of the Geneva Convention. But then in 2006, it's like, oh, it's just a cage with a wall now. Woo! And then like that was also the year where they put like Vince in Big Show's ass, like his face in Big Show's ass, and it's just like this is what the Hell in a Cell is now.
Look how many times his big ass comes up in these ruined concepts. The show was a part of the stairs.
Yeah, oh God, he was.
He was also a part of the consistently parts of the Survivor Series matches that was ruined because once you saw his big ass, it was gonna be a double turn.
I mean, he was in the last really good Survivor Series match too. Like the Survivor Series style match in, what was that, 2014, 2013? When did Sting show up? 2016?
That was his
WrestleMania match, so it was like 2015, I think. Because they were in Santa Monica, California.
No, you're right, because that was the match he turned, and I think he dropped off with the WMD.
Yeah, he punched, I think, Cena with it, and then they pinned him.
And then here comes that damn vigilante. Oh, that damn vigilante.
Hey, listen, I sat through Katie Vick, right? I sat through Booker T and Sharmel's. Oh, hell, Booker! I sat through Great Khali pinning The Undertaker on SmackDown. Granted, this is my favorite era of SmackDown, by the way. I sat through the Raw guest host. I sat through the ECW, whatever the fuck revival that was in 08, 09. I sat through just so much trash.
Don't forget about that anonymous GM, a.k.a. the laptop.
Yeah. I sat through heel Michael Cole. I sat through Bret Hart versus Vince McMahon in a 30-minute WrestleMania match in 2000. What was that? 13? No, 2010, 2011. Oh, I draw the line. I draw the absolute damn line at this bullshit they did with Sting. Like, that was when I'm just like, So you've chosen violence. Let me explain why that was a mistake.
You just see Chad not in the Kylo costume, but you just see a very coiffed-haired individual with a red lightsaber fucking up equipment.
Basically, like, you didn't need to do anything with him. You could have just kept him on a Legends contract, sold his merch, put him in a video game, and fine.
You finally got him to WrestleMania to put DX and the NWO over.
They're the same group. And then you don't even put Sting over? Like, what are you doing? I don't know whose idea that was, but my God. If I ever find out I'm getting a shotgun, putting in one of those beanbag rounds, and I'm going hunting, I ain't going to kill someone over this, because that's ridiculous. But I will make you see God for a few seconds as your heart stops after you've been shot in the chest with a beanbag.
And I guess in hindsight, you appreciate the moment more, because that was like one of the last big televised things that Scott got to be a part of.
Mm-hmm.
If I remember correctly, but still, none of that was worth what they did. I'm like, you finally get him in this company, because in a lot of ways, maybe to him and a lot of other people, he overstayed in TNA. Maybe not to us.
No, I don't think so. He never should have left.
But for a lot of people, he overstayed because Dixie kept, she managed to keep getting to come back. And then they got him there, and it's crazy because his neck thing happened after that. He was practically ruined after that WrestleMania match, and then they did that thing when he was, I guess, scaring Rollins. This is before the neck thing too, when he stayed under that box for God knows how long.
And he sweated so bad his makeup just drizzled.
He was looking like the very visible Lanty at that point. Oh man. Oh yeah.
Just awful. Speaking of awful, Russell Wilson went 3 for 11 in the second half for 15 yards. Yikes. Speaking of yikes, let's talk about Kimberly story.
Yeah, how's that been going, by the way? Do we have an update on that whole thing with who that was with Wentz? She
Yeah,
was with.
I don't know what the official conversation is, but I haven't heard anything new from either side, so I have to imagine
Yeah.
that it's maybe a little overblown. I don't know. There's not a lot to it at the moment. So Kimberly did an interview with NBC Sports Boston, where they talked about social media, the passing of Daphne Unger, Impact Wrestling, and this just came out 5 days ago, so it's fairly new. I don't know when it was recorded, but it came out just 5 days ago. I don't know how this was brought up, but the quote is based around the idea of WWE moving to PG-13 and um, why she has concerns for it moving forward. Should they go that route? Because if you remember, Kimberly was in NXT, so she does have ties to Triple H and the WWE. She says, "quote With WWE going back to a more of a PG-13, I'm honestly a little nervous of what that's going to be. Excuse me. I'm honestly a little nervous of what that's going to do for women. I'm nervous that it's going to sexualize women again, because that's the kind of thing where PG-13 lens tends to go, and we get the boobs out. But I hope it doesn't. I truly do. I think it stands a better chance of not going there being in Triple H's hands. But I'm curious to see where it goes. I'm just going to point this out." In what universe does she think the WWE doesn't already have oodles and oodles and oodles of semi-exposed boobage? Every chick on this roster has giant amounts of cleavage. I generally cannot tell the difference between a wrestling attire and lingerie anymore. Like that's kind of the staple. And to be fair, for decades, men paraded around in speedos. The lack of clothing is kind of
Um,
integrated into pro wrestling. The boobs are already out. I don't know what she's been watching or not been watching.
no, she exclusively affiliates that with the bra and panty thing. It's it's kind of weird to hear somebody talk about an era being like almost being mentally traumatized by an era they wasn't in. Um, because it's not like people think back to like you remember them bra and panties eras and like yeah you remember Kimberly never happened. Um, that'll never be a thing, and it's not us body shame or what have you. Like I get it because specifically when you're somebody who's like I'm sure worked a lot to bring eyes and legitimacy to the technical aspect of so many of these women who in a lot of the different ways and arenas are more talented than some of the guys we get to see. So I get it, and just seeing some of the stuff she did in that X Division match, she's no stranger to not giving 100% and going hardcore. So I get it, but I mean, she look at the landscape now. Like, do you see the stuff Carmella be wearing? Like, Scarlett don't come out wearing uh whole robes. You know,
Scarlett is one advanced paycheck away from doing this nude. Like we all know that. So
yeah.
so so here's just Nikita Lyons from this year. From this year. I I don't know what she's worried about other than she's trying to be like a fear monger. I think she's trying to go out there and do this thing where she wants people to know just how, you know, special she is and how caring she is and how worried she is about these women who she doesn't think have autonomy to say no. We got Nikita Lyons looking like that, and I don't want to sit here and be like, this is a Molly Holly situation. Molly Holly was a very conservative human being in terms of like how she dressed in real life, and she
Yeah.
didn't like being put into skimpy outfits.
Yeah.
Nikita Lyons poses like that on her Instagram.
Yeah, man.
Half
She's
these
it's
women have OnlyFans.
yeah, weeks out, cheeks out.
I'm sitting here, Marcus. It's like
Yeah.
Kimberly is trying to start drama in a place where there's no drama. These women want to look like this. That's why they do this. If
Yes,
there's
yeah.
someone who goes, I just want to wear like an athletic attire, I don't want to be overtly sexualized, and I don't like that I am. We can have a conversation because that's not okay.
Absolutely.
I don't want anyone to ever feel like they can't be who they want to be in their own skin, and be forced to adhere to something they don't feel any type of autonomy over themselves. If they are uncomfortable with looking sexual or
Yeah.
sexualized, then they shouldn't have to do it. But these
Uh,
women all post this shit on their Instagram. All of them.
and to their benefit, it's all a unanimous hustle. A lot of people get paid about stuff they post on Instagram and
Mm-hmm.
Twitter and stuff like that. So many of these influencers are getting paid to post stuff. It's the only reason why they post at all is when they're getting paid. And for these women, they very much know you can't be a WWE superstar and not be aware of your aesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly when you're a woman, like, and so many of these women have these Greek type style bodies, and on a more, I guess, crass note, it ain't too many women in that company that don't have a boob job.
Yeah, a lot of
You
a
know,
lot of them do have implants.
it's a high percentage of them, and some of them I would imagine in a way got them for work, in a way. Um, Maybe not all of them for that reason. Certainly that's not always the reason, but I would imagine in that old regime there was very much a push to up your sex appeal and what have you. Even long after the bra and panty era, there still was a push to do certain stuff. So, um, but you look at that roster too. It's not like all these women have the same style. You're not getting Bailey wearing the stuff that Carmella wears. You're not getting Charlotte wearing the stuff that Nikita Lyon wears. Like, you can tell they have autonomy over their casual clothes as well as their wrestling attire.
Mm-hmm.
And none of them are coming out there. It's not like every woman gets on the ropes and starts twerking. Like, somebody like, who I'm thinking about, um, a Nikki Cross is worlds away from being Mandy Rose. But that's the variety that they have, and that's the variety you want. Now, like I said, I think she's almost exclusively catering PG-13 back to the bra and panty and DX pull your shirt up, show me your boobs type era. But that's not that. And with the social narratives that this company continues to need to push, they're not going to get themselves into a situation to where they're making their women, you know, over sexually expose themselves. That's a PR disaster that they can't afford to happen, and certainly not on Stephanie's watch. So
This feels like much ado about nothing, but also I want to kind of point out that so much of how some of these women dress is not so dissimilar from bra and panty matches. So again, it's one of those things like even if that was her point, it's still missed because look at Mandy Rose. She's not being conservative with her attire. Like she probably wears less than most lingerie outfits bring, in their bundles or whatever the hell they sell them in.
there's never been an aspect of that girl's character since she debuted that's not been about sex appeal.
Basically.
So
And the thing is, like, now you're in this weird, like, it's so funny because, like, the more you start to look for your battlegrounds in the politically correct landscape, the more you end up eating each other. Because now she's sitting here saying, I hope that Stephanie, a woman, doesn't, have women on their show that embrace their sexuality. And now you're talking about slut shaming. See just how easy it is to go from, I'm trying to make sure women have autonomy to slut shaming. It's very fast.
yeah, that line is tricky because you can't even call yourself a feminist if you're closing off a woman's right to embrace her sexuality. But that's not the popular narrative. You know.
See, you can't have so many damn rules with how you interact in society because eventually they're going to overlap and become counterproductive. So don't do it. I'm not
the
saying
con-
lawlessness. I'm just saying,
the contradiction is strong with this one.
basically. Speaking of criticizing WWE, EC3 criticized it, and I'd like to point out that this bum hasn't been relevant since he left TNA when it was TNA still. So I don't know. Maybe he's got more of himself to blame. How's that for a narrative, you dingus? That's let's read his quote.
Uh,
He spoke to Sportskeeda Wrestling recently, and EC3 said an endgame to a storyline that was written the day of, and probably disregarded immediately after. There was no endgame. Says about his appearance with Alexa Bliss on the Moment of Bliss in 2019. The only directions we had were anytime EC3 tries to talk, cut him off. That was a big joke from the old man, Vince McMahon. So he said, continue on saying that he believes his call up to the main roster from NXT in 2018 was directionless from the very beginning. It was trash, he said. This was something I waited my whole life for. I felt nothing, and that's because I knew the call up had no foresight, no interest, and it was completely rushed. I'm sorry, and it was completely rash, as in a rash decision. Yeah, I could have told you that was going to happen. I think I told you it was going to happen. They're still doing it.
yeah, I mean, to be fair, because it's gonna be the one compliment I levy. Uh, if if anything he was remotely doing about his attitude, demeanor, or mentality was a prelude to what we're getting from him now, the old man didn't cut him off at the knees. He had foresight because yeah, it just and I get it, and I mean, we knew the fix was in long before somebody like EC3 debuted that, and in a lot of ways he should have known it too. I think his ego got the better of him, and he thought that he'd be able to go there and show and prove and make them eat crow for getting rid of him the first time, and turned around and I feel like he ended up eating more crow the second time around than he did the first time. Back when NXT was still literally a competition show, so yeah, it's all he's known for these days is, basically overcooking his grits. You know.
He was a great compliment to TNA when he was there. With him, Rockstar Spud, Dixie Carter. But after he turned face for whatever reason, he lost all momentum. He eventually went back to WWE with the NXT. He didn't really do anything in NXT, and that was something that kind of made me like do that puppy dog like, "Rrr?" How are you not doing anything with him? Like I can't tell you one thing he did that's relevant. And then he gets brought up, and it's like, all right, that sucks, and obviously there are issues there, but let's also point out that they're still doing that though. Marcus, Hit Row are jobbers. They got jobbed out to a team. I don't even know who they are. It's DJZ and his friends from I don't know
Oh, you talking
somewhere.
about? Yeah, I actually like them. Delgado, Phantasma,
Yeah, the Fantastic Cats.
fantastic cast. DJZ, Santos Escobar, and to your tweet about it's great to see. Because come on, man, like we go back with DJZ to Zima Ion when he was doing a neck throat taunt with some hairspray. Like, that's how far we go back with him. Back in Zima Ion, back when he had that horrible accident with Jesse Soros, and like we go back with DJZ.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually liked him a lot as Zima Ion, but yeah, he's definitely had a journey. It's cool to see him, getting shiny years now with the other young man with him and being under the former the former hunter from Lucha Underground, King Cuerno. It's just weird though because they did this weird thing where they switched out Latinas with the faction. So instead of the young the beautiful Electra Lopez that they had, for whatever reason, they just done switched her out. And I don't know the reason specifically, but they just switched her out with Thea Trinidad. Or I'm sorry, what? Oh, I forgot her real name, but her.
Zelina
They
Vega.
switched out. Yeah, there it is. Thank you, Zelina Vega. They just switched out with Zelina Vega. So yeah, but Hit Row, man, that's an interesting one because I don't necessarily know if they needed to leave NXT, but so many of those, so much of that vibe is different now. I don't know. They was in this weird spot, but at least they're back. In the company under, maybe they get more of a fair shake. But I think Delgado, their Phantasma, is kind of like the newer hotness than their new hotness. So yeah.
Okay, for here on out, they're the fancy cats, and I don't want to hear any guff about it.
Still the fancy cats. To be fair, that name, that's a the top cat over there. Got a little thing to it, but yeah, the fancy cats. That's funny.
So the fancy
Not the
cats were
SWAT,
jobbing people out. That that
not
that
the
that was the
fancy.
point, though.
Yeah, not the Thundercats, not the SWAT cats, the fancy cats.
Oh no, I can only hope for a SWAT cats revival. Speaking of
On that,
revivals, though,
yeah.
Matt Stryker's coming back to commentary. Woot woot. MLW announced the news on October 14th that Stryker will return at the Fightland event at the 2300 Arena in Philadelphia on October 30th. Stryker made his debut in 2003 for MLW. He was previously part of the broadcast team after his initial WWE departure, starting with the brand in 2019. Stryker has also worked for. So this is great. I love it. Makes me want to tune in even more for October 30th. See, here's the thing with MLW. If they just were more consistent and for whatever reason were able to get all their shows filmed like they intended to, like this would be my number one brand. They got Alexander Hammerstone, they got Myron Reed, they got Jacob Fatu, they got Davey Richards, they got Davey Richards, they got Davey Richards, they got the Von Erichs. This is they got fucking what was he? Not Blaster McMassive, not Flex Rumble Crunch, Max Smashmaster from Shikara. He's Alex Kane bodyguard, I guess you could call him. They got the Boomaye Fight Club. Like this is a dope ass fucking promotion.
Yeah, yeah. First of all, those are some great names. One of those guys sound like a new cereal you shouldn't get. Uh, yeah,
Well,
at one point
the three names Blast McMaster, Flex Rumble Crunch, which is the cereal one I'm assuming,
yeah,
and Max Smashmaster were all part of a trio in Shikara called the Devastation Corporation, and they were all very tall dudes with face paint, and they were awesome. I love them.
that's weird. One guy genuinely sounds like extremely sugary cereal, and the other two sound like names of toys that you would get in said cereal. Oh,
They're the toys you would get at a discount closeout store. Like you have Duperman, the Flight Knights, the Lantern Guy,
hilarious! The
Blaster
laugh.
McMassive, Black Cat Man,
Yeah, all these are like dollar store versions of the DC heroes. It's
Colonel
kind of
United States,
yeah.
Tinfoil Man. So yeah,
Uh,
seeing Striker back is gonna make me happy. But Marcus, we got some more signings coming up. Joining Matt Striker in MLW will be Davey Boy Smith Jr. He's back with the promotion, and
nice.
his cousins. No, not the Hearts. People forget that Davey Boy Smith Jr. or Davey Boy Smith Sr. I should say was not related to the Hearts. He married into the family. Davey Boy Smith Sr. has an entire another family in wrestling known as the Billingtons. We know the oldest Billington or the most notoriable Billington as the Dynamite Kid. That was Davey Boy Smith's biological cousin. The Dynamite Kid has passed away, but his two nephews are now going to be joining up with Davey Boy Smith in MLW, and they're going to be debuting together against the Boomaye Fight Club at Fightland 2022. So it's going to be Alex Kane, his bodyguard, who's I think it's like Sharp. I think it's Thomas Sharp, and Myron Reed versus Davey Boy Smith Jr. And I think it's like Marcus and like Stan Billington. I think. Let's see.
Well, I'm biasly rooting for one of those guys, but
Why? It's because they're white.
actually, actually, I was gonna propose something. I thought that before you said Billington, I was like, there's a whole other side of the family, uh, known as the Truths.
So one is Mark Billington, and the other one is Tom Billington, not Marcus Billington. It's Mark Billington. So I was almost right. Marcus. I was in the same ballpark.
Sound like through some weird form of happenings, David Boy Smith is loosely but also closely related to all truth.
That would be amazing.
That'll be hilarious. And it's weird too, like just hearing you explain it. That sounds that sounds as complicated, almost as complicated as the Samoan cousin situation, but it's not as complicated.
No, it is. Because, think about it, the Samoan cousins are all connected by a surname, save for one or two. The Billingtons, the second generation, or maybe even third, because I think Dynamite Kid's father wrestled. You have the Dynamite Kid, and now you have his nephews. They are second cousins to Davey Boy Smith, who is cousins to Natalia, who's married to Tyson Kidd. And then you have to realize that Jim Neidhart married into the Harts. The Harts have Teddy Hart, who's not related. Well, he is related to Bret Hart, but he's the nephew of Bret Hart. So this is I think, an equally as impressively complicated family scenario as the Anawahis. The only difference is that there's too many surnames, unlike the Anawahis. Because, like we say, the Anawahis, we know we're talking about Roman Reigns, we're talking about Rosie, we're talking about Jamal, we're talking about Jacob Fatu, we're talking about the Usos. So they're all encompassed in that. But with the Harts, the Billingtons, the Neidharts, the Smiths, I'm pretty sure I can find another family. The Pillmans are loosely connected as an unrelated affiliate.
Jesus Christ! You know this as somebody who's currently heavily watching, and after this show, I'm gonna get caught up on the latest episode of House of Dragon. This sounds like the Targaryen BS without the incest, and these people having constantly the same name like Aegon come up.
Aegon, Aragon, Oregon.
He gone, be gone, see gone. Rhaenyra, Rhaenys, Rhaena.
The Ranigan Trail. the
Like
long-awaited sequel to the Oregon Trail.
is anybody listening? It's as ridiculous sounding as we're making it.
Speaking of ridiculous sounding, let's talk about French names. They're terrible. Although this young woman is not Renee Paquette.
Yay.
Ugh, that name, Paquette. It sounds like someone with a slur, not like a slur, with a slurred speech trying to say Pa Kent from
Damn it!
Smallville.
I thought I was about to say that. Oh, damn, you beat me to it. I was like, that's like if we had a French friend that was like they just started watching Smallville.
I've just started watching the Smallville, and I very much like the Paquette. That character speaks to me.
Ah.
Get out of my brain. It's not that big. There's only room enough for one of us. And truthfully, there's not even room enough for one of us. It's more like one of those small tents that you just, crawl into, and half your legs are still outside in the weather.
Yeah, like the strain you are causing cannot be fathomed.
So the most expected situation in the history of AEW is finally unfolded. Renee Paquette is All Elite, following her husband, the face of the company, in the promotion. By the by, Marcus, I know what we're talking about next week. We're not doing news next week. Next week, we're going to do a Halloween show. When's the Halloween show? The Halloween show is going to be... So the Halloween show might be on Halloween. Unless you want to do it a day early on a Sunday. But next week, I think, because I just saw a video. It's from Wrestling with Andy. He did the top guy from every major North American wrestling promotion. And a lot of them were expected. Like the NWA had Ric Flair, WCW had Sting, WWE had, I think it was John Cena. Impact had AJ Styles, Ring of Honor had Samoa Joe. I want to do that. We're doing that. Only we're going to have different answers, hopefully. Except for WCW. It's obviously Sting. Like, I'll fight you.
Oh, we're gonna do discontinued companies too.
What's that?
So we're doing companies that are like still standing and not standing.
Well, yeah, every major North American promotion over the last 20 years from your NWAs, you could even do modern NWAs, MLW, we're going to pick the top guy that best defines that promotion.
Gotcha.
So that's what we're doing for next week. And the reason why I bring that up is because he picked John Moxley for AEW, and I thought that was an interesting pick. Not completely unheard of either. He's been there for a while. Speaking of new contracts, though, Renee Paquette showing up in AEW isn't the only new one. Chris Bay also signed a new extension with Impact, and we also found out why Willie Mack left. Apparently, it was all about the dollar bills. Apparently, they were a little away on money, and Willie Mack decided to basically go get not more money on the independent scene, like the way Willie Mack said that he left basically out of principle, not because there was a better offer. He was going to be making more money in Impact had he stayed. So he decided to do his own thing and to chase around, maybe bring up his profile a bit and try to get a better offer elsewhere. So that seems to be his current mindset, is to try to build back up his name to a higher level and get a better offer. So that's where he's going with that. So not the worst thing. It
Yeah, man.
happens.
I can't be mad at him. Look, I think we both agreed that they should have probably done a lot more with Mac than what they did. I think he got caught up in a lot of stuff, specifically being, tight, still closely tied to Swan during his world title reign. Feel like he got a lot of leftover beef that Swan was dealing with during that reign, and unfortunately not coming out on the better end of it, particularly when you run into somebody like Moose. And they could have gave him another extra because like we talked about before, you forget he was even X Division champion at one point. You know,
Yeah, I did.
and and I think him and I was calling for him and Swan to get those tag titles for the longest, specifically if they were never going to put them on the Rascals. So but they didn't go in that direction. I feel like they kind of capped him financially because I guess for whatever reason they just didn't see you know uh more for him in that regard. So I can't be mad at the man standing on principle. If you know you're worth more than what you're being offered, you gotta go your own way. And if they were never going to elevate him past the point he was, you know, can't blame him either.
I think Willie Mack, and I agree with you to a certain extent with a lot of it. I think one of the
Yeah.
big issues with Willie Mack was that he didn't evolve his look. Because we talk
Mm.
about this a lot.
Yeah.
With specific wrestlers, you have to find that next gear. I guess like we talked endlessly last week about Jordan Grace. Jordan Grace came in and she was, what's the best way to describe it? Um, she had some baby fat. I got a little echo in my ear, so that's fun. So she had a little bit of baby fat on her, which is fine. Nothing wrong with that. But she was still a little bit, muscular. But now she looks like an Amazon goddess because she put in the work. And I feel like when you look the same for a decade, like Willie Mack has, you have to do something to elevate yourself. So I feel like look at Matt Cardona. Like when he debuted in WWE, he was kind of a thin, skinny-ish. He had a little bit of muscular, ness to him, but he had long hair. He looked like a prepubescent Edge. And now you look at him and he looks like a completely different person because he put in the effort. He got himself jacked and he looks very different. Still wrestles like a putz, but hey, you can only do so much with what you're given. So I feel like Willie Mack needs to take that next leap, like figure out what the next evolution in Willie Mack is. This is something that I need to see from a lot of guys, especially in Impact. I need to see a better version of Eddie. I want to see a different version of Rich Swann. I think, Swann specifically because he's got charisma. I think Swann specifically could have that next chapter if he can figure out what that next chapter is. Rosemary's kind of the quintessential version of someone who's always evolving her look. And it works. Like, in the 80s and 70s, you didn't need to do it because you were only being seen once every few weeks on TV at best and maybe once a year in person. So you could keep the same look for a decade. You can't do that anymore. And I feel like Willie Mack kind of held himself back to a degree because he didn't put in the necessary effort to find that next gear. But also, maybe I can see, not maybe, I can definitely see it from the point of view of if you're not getting put up the ladder, so to speak, that
Yeah.
you lose any type of encouragement or motivation to make those changes. Maybe he wasn't probably motivated because he just kind of was like, man, like, what's the point? So
Yeah.
yeah, I get both sides of it. He's in an MLW for a little while. We'll see how long he stays there, and I'm excited about his run in MLW. I think it could be a prime opportunity to see what more he can provide. And as for Bay and Impact, I think him and Ace Austin really do have a great possibility of turning themselves into a legitimate top tier tag team. But we gotta get more from them. So there's that. Speaking of more from them, Marcus, we're getting Brock Lesnar, Bobby Lashley at Crown Jewel. Tell me you're excited, because somebody
And
has to be.
and whitest day and blackest night. No.
I think it's brightest day, homie.
But yeah, they running this back, man, and then you don't have a world championship of Heyman involved. You just got, it's just all about the machismo, pissing contest, if you will. And of course, I guess this is culminating the crown jewel, unfortunately, but they got to hook us in some kind of way. So, I appreciate the fact because this is bringing out a more aggressive side of Lashley, where I feel like in the previous iteration of this feud, he was on the back foot. Now, it's setting up for him to be the more aggressive one. And essentially, with, Brock seemingly being knocked off his perch by Roman, it does appear that he is, 100% beatable now. So we're going to see if Brock might do the honors for the Lashley man.
Mm-hmm. We'll see what happens. Could be good, could be bad. Knowing the history of this event, it's going to be bad. Speaking of bad, we got to talk about Liv Morgan because she looks bad to the bone. She's a bad woman. And now she's jumping out things like a badass. See, I can segue into anything. The only problem is, Marcus, I'm not buying it. You're interested, though. You seem to have some more optimism for this.
Yeah.
She's going into her extreme phase, if you will. So we have, as Powerbomb Jitsu called her, Liv Hardy. I don't know. I don't even remember what I called her. I thought mine was better. I can't remember it though, so it couldn't be that good.
Yeah, I mean, we might have in passing said Liv Allen. We don't.
I think
Um,
Liv Allen was good. Mine was Jeff Hardy related, and it was on Twitter, so I'm gonna look it up. But Marcus, when it comes to this extreme team extreme knockoff, sorry, that was me. Shit, I didn't say knockoff. As far as I called her Jeff Rita.
oh yeah, yeah.
Jeff
I'm
Rita
sure
Hardy.
I'm sure knowing her personality, if she got wind of it, she called her um name herself the charismatic Elithma or something like
Ah,
that.
that's good. That's actually really good.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I got you know. I'm usually more the optimistic one, but for her particularly, because I remember when she was floundering. I remember she was trying to find herself after basically being a sole survivor, by way of, I guess, not being alleviated out of her job, through the Y Squad. And they did them vignettes trying to bring her back when she was looking all sexy and sultry in the bathtub and whatnot. And that didn't really seem to fit her necessarily because she kind of walks that thin line of the sensual goth chick without going the Lana type Carmella route. So she kind of had to come out of that and find herself and get better in the ring and hone her arsenal and whatnot. And I feel like she's done that, and she definitely has a personality. But obviously, she needed to kick into a new gear when she was champion because going against people like Ronda and certainly Shayna Baszler, you can't just be out there doing soft arm drags and whatnot. You kind of need to kick it up a gear. So I get it. The reason why I am intrigued because this potentially, to the point you just made, does give her opportunity to potentially switch up a new narrative for the character. But I'm also not lamenting or not, looking over your point about they could just try to be making her, the extreme queen, if you will, jumping off of everything. It was kind of hard for me to complain when she's beating up Sonya Deville because to me she's like the Baron Corbin of the women. So yeah.
Ooh, Liv Morgan's the Baron Corbin of the women.
No, Sonya is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. Like I have sympathy for what Sonya went through, 2 years
Yes.
ago.
Same. Yeah.
But also as a critic of this industry, she's ass and needs to not be on TV anymore. They're just like the I was an MMA fighter thing would have worked in 2002. But
Hmm.
when you're on the same roster with Ronda Rousey, shut the fuck up.
And Shayna.
Well, like even Shayna on her own as an MMA fighter was unremarkable.
Yeah.
So but Shayna's not doing the I'm an MMA fighter shtick. She's just like I'm gonna take your arm shtick, which is fine, or I'm gonna
Yeah.
take your neck. But like with Sonya Deville, she literally came up like, I'm an MMA fighter. Like I did MMA, and she came out with like MMA gloves. And I'm just like, what? Like this is like Liv Morgan going, I'm extreme, and then Darby Allin's like, really?
As he's saying really as he's doing a coffin drop.
Off a bridge without a bungee cord. Really? And then he just walks back up and high five Sting after dropping 600 feet.
He just sees Sting in a red trench coat, just throwing his hands up like, what? Why are we here?
Darby jumps off something and Sting just nods. Ah, that's why. All right. That's all I got for this week's show. Marcus, you got anything else?
No, that's it. Nothing else major happened. Sean Spears returned to AEW.
Like you said, nothing major happened.
Ah, sorry, Sean. I tried. The point died, but yeah.
Listen, brother, you can buy yourself a chair. You can get yourself a new shirt. You can shave your head and get new friends. But none of that is a substitute for no personality. You either got to get on Danhausen's level or you need to wrestle like Davey Richards. Like, you can't be whatever he is. Like, nah, Marcus. Sean Spears can, go back to the bargain bin in Kmart.
Like they gave you one of the horsemen.
Tully.
Yeah, they gave you Tully, and it still didn't go anywhere, man. It's like it's not a direct sign from God, but it's inching there.
I don't know what they do with him. Like, that dude is basically Brad Armstrong in circa 2022. Like, he's a good hand.
Yeah.
But again, having a good hand back in the 80s and 90s was important because not a lot of the top headliners were good hands. That's no longer the case. Being a good hand with no charisma anymore is just
Yeah.
you're occupying a spot that could have gone to a different guy. Unless they start jobbing him out, I see no purpose for Sean Spears.
Yeah, being a good hand in an era of Keith Lee's is like, being a store brand in a room full of egos. You know what I'm saying? So it's,
Yeah. Non-name brand egos. That's the way to explain Sean Spears. Although blueberry egos, delicious.
Absolutely.
So with that being said, we're done. We're thinking about moving over to YouTube eventually. So if and when that happens, we'll let you know. I'm thinking we're gonna simulcast next week just because I don't know how YouTube streaming is. So I don't want to just hop into something willy-nilly without having some type of, backup. And since most of our subscribers are on YouTube, it just kind of makes sense. Plus, Twitch is owned by Amazon. And I'm just looking for any reason to not support Amazon.
Let's not stand on ceremony here, Bezos.
Listen, I watch The Boys. I'm going to watch Ted Lasso. That doesn't mean I have to be subscribed to Amazon or Apple TV to do so.
Oh, man.
How do I watch that? None of your damn business. Maybe I have a friend whose house I go over to watch. I don't necessarily watch things illegally. You don't know.
You're asking Chad for his viewing habits. He turned into Johnny. Quiet!
Marcus, you have to watch Ted Lasso eventually.
Yeah, I gotta add it to the list. I done heard people who don't even, I feel like, watch series like that talk about Ted Lasso. Like, I feel like it's hard these days to move into, like, the pop culture of it all. I feel like Ted Lasso's move into that conversation.
Yeah. The one thing I do like about Ted Lasso is it's not trying to be current with events. Like, you know how, like, with CW shows, they'll always throw in, like, modern events just to kind of make it more, like, feel like lived in.
Yeah.
They don't do that. So it's like, this is a show that will age well long past its original runtime. Plus, the entire second season sees the Nigerian, or no, he's not Nigerian. No, he is Nigerian. The Nigerian-born Sam Obasanya become like a big star. So like a African prince billionaire comes to like try to recruit him for his team, and he drops the best, just, "You Nigerian motherfucker."
Oh, is that the scene where they in the locker room or something?
Yes.
Oh yes, I've seen that one. That's the one scene I've seen.
Did I
That scene
send it to
was
you?
yes, that
You
was
Nigerian motherfucker.
hilarious.
And Sam's like, whoa. Sam's a golden retriever, and he's the best thing in that show.
Because it's one of those scenes where you're either like dude, did you get some sleep? Because somebody talk to you like that, you're either matching their energy or you're going over it.
And he went over it. He went all like he's like, this is a scene, and you can do it normally, or you can chew the scene. And he went, no, 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 no. I'm going over the scene. I'm not going to just chew the scene. I'm going big. And he went huge. I loved it. Oh, it's such a great show. And it's wholesome. Like, it's good, kind hearted. And it's not like a show that is devoid of realness. Like, not to drop some spoilers, but Ted Lasso deals with anxiety. And he has panic attacks. And they don't, shy away from it, but they also kind of embrace the idea that you can get through these things with, compassion. And it's really interesting. And I love it. It's a great show. And to think that his wife is, what the fuck is her name? Or his ex-wife? Olivia Wilde? She was married to the guy who played Ted Lasso, and she left him for fucking that British dude from the boy band.
Sudeikis or something?
Yes, Sudeikis was married to Olivia Wilde for like a decade. Or were together for a decade, married for I don't know how long.
Yeah,
And
she's in the headlines right now.
What's
Yeah.
that?
Apparently she's in the headlines right now.
Oh, she's all over the headlines. She's painted in the headlines. Apparently, cheating on your husband with someone like half your age will do that for you.
Mm.
Shocker.
Don't often get that on the other side of the gender coin, so that's interesting.
I think we get it more than we think. We just don't hear about it as much.
Yeah, publicly, yeah.
So that'll be it for this week's show. We'll be back next Monday, whenever. It's supposed to be on by 10. We were on them by 11:30. It's not like we weren't on. Like, we were talking for a good 90 minutes before the show started. You all just aren't privy to our friendship. That shit's private. So we'll be on next Monday, probably on both Twitch and YouTube. Go to the Twitter account, NERDCORP on Twitter, and we'll post links to both so you can follow along there. We'll also be on. I would rather do Sunday the 30th, Marcus, because I like celebrating Halloween.
Oh no, I got you. Yeah, we do that.
Okay, so then after that, we'll do our Halloween special on Sunday, and we'll figure out something to do for that. We'll do maybe a couple top fives. We'll maybe talk about an old show, an old Halloween show. We'll figure something out. We'll add the spookiness to it. A little spooktacular. So that'll be all there. So yeah, that'll be for 2 weeks from today, or from yesterday. 2 weeks from yesterday. So with that being said, he's Marcus Green. You can find him on Twitter at ParadoxKid, ParadoxKid.
That's me.
He also has another podcast, another pro wrestling podcast called The True Penny Show, TruePennyShow. You can find that on Twitter at True Penny Show on Twitter. New Japan and Noah are dropping a bunch of shows this week, so I'm sure that they're gonna have plenty of content to talk about in their next update. Plus, we're getting ready for that Will Ospreay versus Tetsuya Naito U.S. title match here at the start of November. So that's gonna be big. Plus, the TV title tournament's still ongoing. It's supposed to be a belt for younger stars, and everyone like the mean average or the medium average is like 35. So like. All right, New Japan, you have a weird definition of young. So check out their show. They'll be covering all sorts of events like that. You can find him on. You can find me on Twitter, Chad Portal, at Chad Nerdcorp, ChadNerdCorp, and on the Instagram at Chad Sweatowet, ChadsPhotoHut. Be sure to tune in next Monday for another edition of the Wrestling Underground podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for checking us out. Thanks for giving us a chance. And remember, as always, to watch more wrestling. Marcus, take us home.